Moving right along. Listen to what Donald Trump, speaking of the big event, told Neil on this very program about standing up to China earlier this week. Listen.
Everyone focusing on your 45% tariff idea for China. They're saying that you're not equipped or able to offer.
I'm just saying that we have to take a tough stance in China, because I never said, I don't even know where the 45% came from, but I said that is the equivalent of what they've done with respect to their devaluations. But China has to pay a price if they don't start, behaving, because they're killing us on trade.
Well, let's bring in Trump National Spokeswoman Katrina Pierson to start with that. The funny thing, Katrina, he did say that, because we looked after the interview at the New York Times transcript, and Donald Trump himself brought up the 45% number. So what's going on with China?
Well, yes, and I'll tell you that if you look at Mr. Trump's actual China policy paper on his website, the only percentage there is 15%, and that's the corporate tax. This was a discussion that was had during the New York Times editorial board. Right. In the discussion of talking about how China's manipulation when it comes to currency as well as subsidies. And if you do add all that up, of course, it would be about 25% or 45%. When you look at just this last December, how Commerce has already added a tariff to solar panels coming out of China because of that very same thing.
Well, so just to get it straight, I mean, Jeb Bush came out, and said this is idiotic. That was his quote. But just to get it straight, you stand by the 45% number. So that is the number, that the tariff on China?
No. So what Mr. Trump is saying is to make it equal, because he's always talking about fair trade as he is a free trade person. But because of the currency manipulation, on top of the illegal subsidies that's always being discussed with China, it would equal about 45%.
Okay, so that's how you do that. Fair enough. Let me ask you about some of the other issues, because there are a number of them leading into tonight. These questions about Ted Cruz and citizenship, is that sticking? Is that the sense you get?
Well, I think it is, only because the senator just recently renounced his citizenship, and I think that was a shock to many people. Donald Trump did not bring this topic up. This came up through a Washington Times reporter because there was a Democrat threatening to file a lawsuit. Mr. Trump simply answered a question. The problem here is Senator Cruz went directly at Mr. Trump regarding the issue on Twitter, and so that's why we're talking about this today.
But you think it's having an effect, the idea that people are starting to wonder whether he really could run for president?
Yes, it's having an effect, because you do have people like Lawrence Tribe and others coming out and saying, well, the senator might be a United States citizen, even though being born in Canada, but it's not really settled in the court system. And I think that's what's giving people pause, is because everyone knows the Democrats are going to do whatever they can to hold power in this country, to maintain that power, and filing a lawsuit would be something they could probably do quite easily in this case.
All right, give me one more thing, Katrina, before I let you go, and that's a sense of how you guys internally see Iowa. The polls show it now very close. In fact, as you know, I know Mr. Trump cited the Quinnipiac poll where he's up a couple points. Some other polls show Cruz up a couple points. But the bottom line, within the margin, they're very close. And then some people say Cruz, more people as a second choice would pick him. So he's stronger. He's strong with the evangelicals. What do you expect in Iowa right now?
Well, I'll say it again. I'm very confident that Mr. Trump is going to win Iowa. There are so many supporters in Iowa who are going to be caucusing for the first time, who've already gone through the process and are ready. There are disenfranchised Democrats that are supporting Mr. Trump. And we've seen that pretty much across the board, even in other states, when we look at polls of people that are defecting over to Mr. Trump simply because of his economic policies, his immigration policies, and his foreign policy. Right. So I'm pretty confident Mr. Trump is going to pull it off in Iowa.
Well, speaking of which, on the immigration, and we're just about to talk about this new Jeb Bush ad, which I don't know if you've seen it. You probably have, going after Mr. Trump as well. Any reaction to either the new Jeb Bush ad, which I'll play for you guys in a second, or this Nikki Haley back and forth really has become a big deal too, right?
Well, kind of. We'll say that it was very odd that Nikki Haley wanted to address Mr. Trump in a State of the Union address, so we're still not quite sure where that came from. But with regards to Jeb Bush, there is no response required. He can continue to spend tens of millions of dollars and sink in the polls. The Republican Party is just done with Bushes. With respect to Governor Haley, it's interesting because in the state of South Carolina, Mr. Trump has about 40% support in her own state. So the fact that she would take time out of a response that was designed to go against Barack Obama's policies and some of the blatant lies that he told in the State of the Union, she went after the Republican frontrunner, someone who is very well respected and has a lot of support in her own state. So she really insulted her own constituents.
All right, Katrina, thanks. Enjoy tonight. Katrina Pierson with the Trump
Thanks,
campaign.